Hello, my dear friends. Tonight, we're heading deep into the blistering sands of forgotten kingdoms and sacred riverbanks, where beauty, health, and royalty were stitched together with secrets often revolting ones. You're standing in the shadow of a Nubian palace. The air smells of incense and salt-crusted leather. Royal drummers throb out a low beat. But the king, resplendent in gold-threaded robes, isn't preparing for war. He is preparing his body for the invisible. The court healer enters with a gourd. Inside, animal marrow. Thick, cloudy, and fermented until it stinks of wet earth and sour milk. You watch, both horrified and fascinated, as the king kneels before him. With precise hands, the healer scoops a gelatinous glob and smears it across the king's chest, neck, and temples. The heat doesn't mask the stench. This is not a moment of royal pampering, it's a ritual meant to ward off death itself. The glamorous illusion. Ancient Nubian rulers, especially from the kingdom of Kushare, often painted in our minds as poised gods in human form. Pristine in white linen, skin glistening with scented oils, walking amid gold-tipped papyrus. But beneath those robes, the truth festers like a hidden wound. The shocking reality. Many believed that spirits of the underworld could curse a king's body through unclean or vulnerable flesh. To seal his body, fermented marrow from gazelles or river pigs was mixed with ash and smeared onto him like a necrotic salve. The mixture smelled putrid. It drew flies. But the longer it rotted, the more potent it became, according to belief. Imagine being wrapped in royal linens with this glop clinging to your chest, fermenting beneath your clothes under the African sun. This was not a one-time ordeal. It was weekly, sometimes daily during eclipse seasons or before harvest rites. You can feel the sticky warmth on your own chest now, can't you? Why would they do this? Because power wasn't just about spears and symbols, it was about purity. Marrow, they believed, held the essence of an animal's vitality. When fermented, it became spiritually volatile, capable of absorbing negative energies, especially marrow from animals that died of natural causes, which were considered to have passed into the afterlife willingly. Such willing spirits were thought to be kind, even generous, willing to lend their strength to a living ruler. But decay had to run its course. If the marrow was used too early, it was seen as ineffective. Too late, and it might attract bad spirits instead of warding them off. Healers had to be precise. Some even buried the marrow underground and timed its retrieval to the lunar cycle. A sickly science, ruled by shadowy calendars and blood-coloured moons. You sit cross-legged in the dust as the court observes the ritual. The stink makes your eyes water. The king barely flinches. This, he believes, is what keeps him alive. His enemies might poison his drink or curse his name, but they'll never get through this marrow barrier. There's a darker layer here too. Marrow was often mixed with traces of human bone ash. Not from just anyone, only from executed traitors or rival chiefs. By rubbing this into his body, the king wasn't just protecting himself. He was symbolically binding the defeated to his service in the afterlife. Their strength, their fate, was absorbed into his flesh. You feel a chill that isn't from the wind. Modern sanitation would recoil, of course. But for the Nubian elite, rotting animal remains went filth. They were divine tools. Medicine wasn't just about the body, it was about story, spirit, and submission. The king's smooth skin, gleaming in hieroglyphs, was a lie. Underneath, a rotting coat of animal sacrifice. Even women of the court had their own version. During certain rites, high priestesses anointed themselves with a marrow-based lotion mixed with crushed beetles. The logic? The beetles were symbols of rebirth. The smell must have been unbearable. And yet an honor. The irony. This grotesque practice may have accidentally helped. The fermented marrow and ash combo had antimicrobial properties, especially once left to brew under the hot sun. Not sterile, of course, but enough to ward off some skin infections or mask odors in an age without baths. You wonder if the ancients knew, or if it was just a lucky side effect. So here you are, breathing it in. The sour scent of decay, mingling with myrrh and sweat. You've learned something already, haven't you? History's shine is always built atop decay. Just beneath that golden mask, there's always something sticky. But don't worry. The next cure doesn't go on your skin. It goes straight into your bloodstream. You're standing now beneath the gathering dusk, somewhere on the open veldt. The grass crunches beneath your bare feet. Dust floats up with each step like ghost breath. You're following a Zulu warrior, tall and stoic, his back streaked with ritual scars. His movements are deliberate, every limb singing, with tension and grace. You admire him until he stops near a smouldering fire and gestures for you to kneel. You do. Slowly. The smell hits first. Something oily, something amphibian. And then you see it. A clay pot, bubbling softly, thick with fat rendered from frogs. Actual frogs. Their bloated bodies were roasted over flame, then mashed, bones and all, into a sickly greenish paste. The man dips 2 fingers in and smears it across your forearms, your chest, your temples. You gag. This, he whispers, is what makes him fearless. The glamorous illusion. The Zulu Empire under leaders like the legendary Shaka Zulu is often imagined as a machine of military perfection. Warriors standing in perfect formation, their skin glistening under the sun, their assegais flashing with deadly precision. Strength, agility, discipline preserved in textbooks and myth. The shocking reality. These warriors didn't just train. They doped. But not with powders or syringes. They turned to animals. Specifically, frogs, especially the waxy monkey frog or its close African cousins. And what they did with that fat was unholy. The process was simple: roast the frogs, extract the oil, and smear it across the skin during pre-battle rituals. But some warriors took it further. They sliced the skin open to the incisions on the arms and thighs and rubbed the frog fat directly into the wounds. Yeah. Open skin absorption. The paste hissed and bubbled on contact, sometimes causing seizures, sometimes ecstatic fits. You sit there, frog fat burning on your skin, heart pounding faster than it should. Your vision begins to blur. Not imagination reaction. The amphibian oils triggered what we might call a neurochemical firework show. Hallucinations. Adrenaline spikes. Numbness. Some warriors described it as walking through the ancestors before entering battle. Others simply vomited and passed out. Why do it? Because in the Zulu worldview, fear wasn't just emotion, it was a spirit. A creature that clung to your skin and whispered failure. To kill it, you had to burn it out. Amphibian, half of earth, half of water, were seen as liminal beings. They travelled between worlds. Their fat, when combined with ash and ashwood resin, became a psychic scrub. The soul armour. There's another twist. Elders believed frogs absorbed bad omens during storms. If you caught them after a lightning strike, their essence was charged. The greasier the frog, the better the outcome. And the outcome? Surviving a battle that would leave fields soaked with blood. Now, you're dizzy, not from fear, from chemical warfare. One that was self-inflicted. And here's the kicker, there's science behind it. Some species of frog secret toxins, cardiotonic steroids, opioids, and other potent molecules. Modern scientists have studied similar practices in Amazonian tribes too. The body reacts with a stress explosion, then, oddly, clarity, enhanced senses, temporary immunity to pain. So imagine 200 warriors running full speed into the fray, skin slick with frog grease, veins humming with whatever that was, eyes glazed but locked in. Their enemies, uninitiated, said they fought like ghosts. You watch now as the warrior before you begins to chant. Low. Repetitive. His body trembles, but he doesn't collapse. The smoke dances around him. Other men join him, all anointed with the same amphibian salve. You suddenly realize, this wasn't chaos. It was theatre. Controlled, rehearsed, sacred madness. The fat wasn't the only ingredient. Some warriors also used animal bile, sometimes crocodile or monitor lizard, mixed into the paste. Bitterness made it stronger. Some even dropped in powdered horn or teeth of rival tribesmen, stolen from their corpses. This was war alchemy. Blood magic by another name. And always the frog. Of course, not every warrior returned from battle. Some never even made it through the ritual. Heart failure, seizures, vomiting blood. But these were considered honourable deaths. Spirit world had either accepted your offering or consumed you. Either way, your name lived on. You wipe your face with your sleeve, but the grease smears deeper into your pores. There's no escape now. You're part of it. A participant in a rite that's both medical and mystical, ridiculous and revelatory. Later that night, curled beneath a woven reed mat, your body still tingling, you can't help but wonder, did the Zulu know they were hacking their own biochemistry? Or did they simply believe in ghosts and bravery, and stumble upon a throb-based adrenaline booster along the way? You're drifting now, lulled by the thought of skin-slick warriors dancing under lightning, howling their terror out before taking up spears. You want to wash your arms, but you don't. You want to forget the smell, but it's sticky, like fear. And now you're about to meet a king who believes his stomach holds the fate of the kingdom. You wake in the shadow of a vast red palace. Thick air hums with the centaur, roasted grains, and animal hide. This is the kingdom of Ghana, not the modern nation, but the ancient empire centuries ago, pulsing with trade, gold, and ritual. You shuffle through the carved archways, led by servants dressed in leopard skin. Ahead lies the royal dining chamber, veiled in thick linen, where a cure unlike any you've seen before awaits. And no, it won't be smeared on your skin this time. It's going inside. A wide bowl is brought forward. Steam rises from it, and something pungent, earthy, slightly sweet hits your nostrils. You lean in, cautiously. It's liver, roasted. But not just any liverhina liver. And it's not dinner. It's medicine. The glamorous illusion. The rulers of ancient Ghana are remembered as merchant king stall, eloquent, draped in golden ornaments, commanding armies and controlling the flow of salt, gold, and ivory across the Sahara. Historians depict them seated on thrones, dispensing wisdom, receiving envoys, dignified, untouchable. The shocking reality. These same kings often suffered from terrible indigestion, chronic constipation, or worse because of the extravagant ceremonial feasts they were forced to consume. And the remedy. A steaming, oil-slick slab of hyena liver, served with fermented goat milk and hot charcoal water, all meant to reset the royal digestion. You watch as the king regal calm, aloof lifts the liver and bites into it with ceremonial slowness. His attendants watch, utterly still. Because this isn't just medicinal. It's political. You see, in the worldview of Ghana's royal class, the king's gut was symbolic. It wasn't just a stomach, it was a vessel of balance. If the king suffered indigestion, it was a cosmic imbalance. Crops might fail. Trade might collapse. His bowel movements were the barometer of national health. Imagine that. Your nation's fate tied to one man's ability to go. So, why hyena? Because hyenas, though feared and despised, were seen as digestive gods. They consumed bone, flesh, fur, even rotund remained healthy. In some belief systems, this made their organs sacred. The liver, especially seen as the seat of both digestion and spiritual filtering, was consumed to pass on that power. Raw, roasted, or mashed into curdled milk. You can feel it now sinking into your own gut. It's greasy, gamey, but oddly rich. The sour milk cuts the iron tang. You gag a little, and a servant hands you a carved gourd filled with hot water infused with charred acacia bark. The charcoal isn't just for flavour, it's supposed to absorb evil wind in the stomach. And this wasn't just a quick fix. The king followed a strict digestive regimen: hyena liver after ceremonial feasts, goat gallbladder before battle, and fasting each time a lunar eclipse approached. Because stomach turbulence during an eclipse meant the gods were punishing the land. Now picture this, a council of priests monitoring the king's excrement. Yes, literally. They observed colour, smell, even flotation. They chanted over chamber pots. And if the king suffered bloating, drums were sounded, offerings were made. Sometimes entire villages had to contribute herbs or liver stock to realign the royal tract. You're beginning to realise just how obsessed ancient medicine was with internal balance. The smell of bile becomes familiar. The heat from the charcoal water warms your belly. Still, the hyena meat sits like a rock inside you. And here's the deeper why. These kingdoms didn't separate the physical from the spiritual. A stomachache wasn't just a stomachache, it could be a warning from ancestors. Digestive blockage? That might be a prophecy of drought. The king's belly wasn't private, it was a public, national artifact. You pass a ceremonial stool carved with spiral symbols. It's not for sitting. It's for offering, and it's where the king would present his results during certain full moon observances. A clean, well-timed bowel movement meant the ancestors were at peace. A mess. Well, a few heads might roll. You don't want to know how they tested the effectiveness of the liver back then. But let's just say, if it didn't work, the blame didn't fall on the king. It fell on the chef, or worse, the animal spirit. In such cases, a new hyena had to be caught and sacrificed. Sometimes more than one. And what happened to the bones? Ground into powder, mixed with palm oil, rubbed onto the king's abdomen. Remember that theme, inside and out. Every cure was also a ritual. Every bodily function, a divine clue. So here you are now, feeling slightly nauseous, slightly sacred. You understand why the servants speak in whispers, why the court sorcerer grinds herbs all night, why the hyenas howl in the distance is both feared and revered. You're not sure if your stomach has settled or not. You're not even sure you want to know. But the next practice, it doesn't go in your mouth or on your skin. It's injected by fangs. You find yourself crouched in the shadow of a palm-thatched hut, deep in the forest heartland of the old kingdom of Dahomey. The air is damp, thick with the scent of wet bark and distant smoke. Night presses against the village like a hand, muffling sound. Inside the hut, flickering firelight casts strange shadows, and at the centre of it all is a basket of snakes. You recoil instinctively. Not just any snakes, vipers, their scales slick with mud, their mouths clamped shut with thin twine, and crouched beside them. A man with eyes that don't blink, wearing a cloak of feathers and ochre-painted skin. Is a healer or something more primal? In his hands, he holds a tiny obsidian-tipped rod. You lean closer as he begins to milk the venom. The glamorous illusion. The kingdom of Dahomey is often remembered for its military innovations, its famed all-female warrior corps, and its precise, brutal political machinery. European observers marvelled at the orderliness of its court and the regality of its leaders' medicine and science. They said, walked hand in, and here. The shocking reality. Behind the order lay a blood-spattered web of mystical experimentation, and venom played a starring role. Here, the ill weren't always treated with herbs or prayers. Sometimes, they were injected, not with needles, but with snake fangs. The healer now extracts venom from the viper's glands, mixing it into a paste of crushed bark, dried monkey blood, and spider web. The resulting goo is greyish, bitter-smelling, and still dangerously toxic. And then, gently, he holds the snake above the patient's arm or arm. You flinch, but it's too late. The healer forces the viper to bite. A controlled bite, he says. A bite that heals. The bite itself barely stings, but within seconds, your skin burns. Numbness follows. The venom, diluted and mixed with the strange forest paste, is believed to draw out illness, to burn away fever, even to sting away spiritual curses. You want to scream, but then, bizarrely, your headache fades. In Dahomey cosmology, snakes were more than slithering threats. They were messengers. Their poison was sacred punishment, sharp, targeted, purifying. To ingest it, or to let it enter your bloodstream, was to ask the gods for violent clarity. Like cracking a mirror just to see what's behind it. And there were different venoms for different ailments. Neurotoxic for madness. Hematoxic for blood curses. Cytotoxic for skin diseases. The healers kept charts not on paper, but in carved gourds, bone diagrams and oral maps memorized from mentor to apprentice. They tracked symptoms and snake types with religious precision. You lie there, the firelight dimming as your arm throbs. The healer chants softly, blowing powdered bone over your face. You've become part of a living experiment, centuries old. a ritual that straddles the line between medicine and martyrdom. So why did people allow this? Why didn't they run? Because in a society where illness was often seen as a breach of cosmic law, desperate cures went stranger they were, sacred obligations. If your child's fever burned too long, it wasn't bacteria. It was ancestral wrath. And the only thing that could counteract spiritual venom was literal venom. Even the elite participated. Royal advisors were sometimes given microdoses of viper venom mixed with cola nut to sharpen the mind before diplomacy. It was believed the venom clarified the tongue, that it purged deceit from one's words and helped prevent being tricked by foreign merchants. But of course, it came at a cost. Too much venom, and your lips turned blue. Your hands trembled. Some died. Others went mad. But those who survived, they were considered touched by divine vision. Thrusted, elevated. You feel it know your heartbeat echoing like a war drum in your ears. Your fingers tremble, but your vision sharpens. You suddenly notice every thread in the healer's robe, every flicker of the flame. Is it real clarity or just your neurons frying? You can't tell. No one could. That was part of the mystery. What happened to the snakes afterward? Some were released, marked with ochre to be avoided. Others were buried with the sicto, carry the curse away. A few were burned, their ashes mixed with sacred oil and kept in clay jars as protective charms. Snake ashes were often smeared on babies' foreheads to prevent fevers or convulsions. Every bite, every hiss, every fang had meaning. You lie back now, the venom humming in your veins like heat lightning. You understand why they did it. Why they'd risk it. When medicine is belief and belief is survival, there's no such thing as too dangerous. There's only, did it work? The healer smiles now, teeth white against the fire. You're alive. You've been purified. But you're still not clean enough, not by royal standards. No, for true beauty and protection, you'll need something far more aromatic. And this time, it comes from the back end of a beast. You're in a dim, sweet-smelling chamber now. The walls are woven from reeds and decorated with gleaming beads. Hanging from the ceiling are jars, pouches, and a few things you wish you hadn't noticed. There's the faint sound of a waterfall outside it, but your attention is on the woman before you. She is radiant. Draped in silk, her hair plaited with amber, her face powdered in gold dust. A queen or perhaps a priestess of an ancient Nile side kingdom, likely somewhere along the border of what we'd now call Sudan or Ethiopia. She commands the room not with words, but with presence. Her beauty is undeniable. Then she smiles and beckons to a small wooden bowl beside her. Bandinette. A thick paste made from crocodile dung. You feel your stomach lurk, but she doesn't hesitate. With a carved ivory spoon, she scoops the green-brown mass and smears it across her cheeks, slowly, gently, reverently. You've entered the realm of ancient cosmetic medicine, and it's far more foul than any modern face cream commercial could dare. The glamorous illusion. These queens and noblewomen were idolized for their beauty figures carved into temple walls with flawless skin, high cheekbones, and glowing eyes. We imagine them as perfumed goddesses, coated in rare oils, always graceful, never greasy. The shocking reality. Their radiance came from a gut-wrenching ritual of nightly masks, exfoliants and salves made of crushed insects, fermented milk and yes, crocodile excrement. Because dung, especially from sacred animals like crocodiles, was believed to have dual powers, fertility and protection. To smear it across the face was to honor Sok, the crocodile-headed god of strength and rebirth. But it wasn't just symbolic. Women believed the enzymes in the dung purified the skin, warded off evil spirits, and bizarrely helped prevent pregnancy. Yes, some early medical texts suggest dung was applied not just on the face, but in more intimate areas, as a kind of contraceptive. The logic? Crocodiles, though dangerous, were meticulous nesters. Their dung was thought to contain protective properties that kept away bad spirits or unwanted life. You watch as the queen closes her eyes, the thick mask slowly hardening. The room fills with the musky, muddy aroma. You try not to breathe too deeply. Her attendants begin to hum a low, rhythmic chant. This is no spa day, it's a sacred rite. There's even a name for the full mask ritual, ketsebik. It involved a 3-part treatment first, exfoliation with powdered eggshell and date seeds. Then, the dung mask, left on until it cracked. Finally, rinsing with river water, blessed by the temple priests, and the dung had to be fresh. The crocodile was usually captured that morning. It would be fed a special herd, laced meal beforehand, said to enrich its waste. The resulting dung was collected before it touched the ground, often mixed with fig sap or crushed lotus petals to make it less offensive, a futile effort. If you ask your nose, you feel a drop of sweat crawl down your temple. The queen opens her eyes and looks at you. She motions to another bowl. Your bowl. It's your turn. You kneel, and the attendant begins to apply the mask. The smell is overpowering, like wet leather left in the sun, with a hint of spoiled wine. You fight the urge to gag. But as the mask hardens, your skin begins to tingle. Not painfully, just enough to notice. The enzymes. Maybe they're doing something. Or maybe it's the sheer embarrassment seeping into your pores. You think again about why this practice existed. Ancient medicine often didn't draw a clear line between external and internal healing. If your skin was clear, it meant your spirit was clean. If your face shone, it meant your ancestors smiled upon you. Beauty wasn't vanity, it was protection. The more elaborate the ritual, the more it signaled your favor with the divine. Some even believed the crocodile dung absorbed bad thoughts, that it could physically pull envy and malice from others' stares off your face like a sponge. This is why the mask was always worn before major ceremonies or public appearances, especially if rivals would be present. In fact, during certain festivals, women would gather in riverside huts and apply their masks in unison. They'd sing together, tell stories, and occasionally curse each other with rival dung blensius. Sometimes women would sabotage a rival's mix with dung from sick animals or goats, hoping to cause rashes or misfortune. It was a form of chemical warfare wrapped in ritual. You're beginning to feel the mask tighten. Your lips dry out. A strange peace settles in. You realize that this was never about comfort. This was about control. About asserting power through endurance. Looking beautiful was not about softness, it was a declaration of your strength to withstand the grotesque. When the queen finally rises, the mask cracks like old paint. Her face gleams beneath. She looks powerful. Reborn. You, on the other hand, are dripping and raw. But don't worry. You want to be left out in the sun too. Not yet. Because if you get wounded, which, in these kingdoms, is more than likely, they have something alive to stuff into the gash. It crawls. It wriggles. And it works. You've made it this far. You've smeared, swallowed, and survived, but now you're lying on a straw mat in the sun, and things are about to squirm. Your arm is wrapped in linen, soaked through with something red. A gash-deep, ragged, the kind you might get from a poorly trained hunting lion, or a ceremonial knife gone slightly too ceremonial. The wound is festering. You can smell it. Sweet and sour and wrong. The healer approaches. No fancy robes this time. Just a simple wrap, dark hands, and a gourd in his grip that buzzes faintly. Inside, something writhes. You want to believe it's a trick of the heat mirage, wind, maybe your rising fever. But no. He opens the gourd and out pour maggots. Lump. Ut. Alive. They wriggle like spilled noodles. And they are coming for your flesh. The glamorous illusion. Kingdoms like Mali, with its shining capital at Timbuktu, are remembered for golden libraries, desert caravans, and rulers who threw gold like sand. A place of scholarly calm, with healers educated in astronomy and philosophy. Medicine, you're told, was measured, precise, poetic. The shocking reality. Yes, there were scrolls and sages, but when it came to real wounds, the answer often came in the form of fly lava lovingly spooned onto your skin. The healer doesn't hesitate. With a carved spoon, he lifts a squirming clump and gently places it right into the gash. The sensation is awful. Hurt. Ooh, ticklish. Then, as the maggots settle in, you feel nothing at all, as if your nerves can't decide whether to scream or shut down. Here's the kicker. It worked. You see, long before anyone uttered the word antibiotic, some West African medical practitioners had figured out that certain kinds of fly larvae, when introduced to a wound, would eat the dead flesh and ignore the healthy tissue. A disgusting, but miraculous form of selective cleaning. They called them the white mouths, the ancestors' cleaners, and yes, these were cultivated on purpose. You roll your head slightly and see a nearby cage filled with goat hides deliberately left to rot in the sun. This is where the healer farmed his maggots. The best ones came from flies that nested during the dry season, because their larvae were hungrier. According to tradition, the gourd had been sealed tightly to let the maggots stew in darkness, which made them wiser. The logic: anything that grows in death, but brings life, must carry sacred balance. You start to understand the worldview. Life and decay weren't opposites, they were dance partners. Healing didn't always mean purification. Sometimes it meant inviting the filth in, giving it a roll, letting it eat the disease away. Your skin begins to itch now, but not painfully. The maggots are moving cleaning. You try not to look, but the healer tilts the bowl so you can see them, feasting, their tiny, jawless mouths rhythmically pulsing. It's mesmerizing, horrifying, effective. He hums as he works, sprinkling ash and crushed hibiscus petals around the wound. Not for healing, for dignity. The petals were believed to distract bad spirits, who might be offended by the unpure sight. Even decay had to be dressed up for guests. In Mali's more elite households, the wealthy even had maggot servants, young apprentices who bred, cleaned and sang to the larvae. It was believed that music made them more obedient, more focused. And yes, people swore by it. You think about that. Families passing down maggot recipes like soup instructions. 2 goat hides, left for 4 days. Gather before moonrise. Bathe the larvae in papaya milk before use. A symphony of rot, choreographed to save lives. But not everyone approved. There were factions in ancient Mala, more academic, more refined, who viewed maggot medicine as rural nonsense. Yet when scroll-bound remedies failed, guess where they sent their sick? To the fields, to the flies, to the filth. And there's something else. In royal courts, the use of maggot therapy wasn't just tolerated, it was political. If a ruler survived a severe injury through this method, it was spun into proof of divine favor. Even the worms serve him, they'd say. Even decay obeys his command. Suddenly, it wasn't gross. It was a miracle. Your thoughts blur. The sun beats down, but your fever recedes. The smell isn't as bad as you expected, just earthy, like a compost heap after rain. The pain, too, is dulled. You hate to admit it, but it's working. And as the healer begins to gently wipe the wound clean, plucking the fattened maggots and feeding them to waiting chickens, really you realize you're alive, because something small, slimy, and utterly revolting just did a better job than a scholar ever could. And yet, for all their usefulness, maggots went for everyone. Some saw them as a last resort, a sign of spiritual collapse. In those cases, people turned instead to a more noble source of vision, wisdom, and rot, a bird that feasts on corpses. You've healed, mostly. The maggots are gone, and so is the fever. But something is wrong. Something is watching. You're in a hut high on a hill, surrounded by baobab trees like ancient guardians. The fire crackles low. Beside you, an old priest in a robe stitched with feathers begins to hum a tune that loops back on itself like a snake eating its tail. On the wall hangs a bird, its wings outstretched, dried, preserved. Its beak parted mid-screech. A vulture. But this isn't just for decoration. Tonight, you'll eat part of it. Specifically, its heart. You don't flinch anymore. The glamorous illusion. The kingdom of Congo rulers of vast rainforests and river networks was respected for its trade, diplomacy, and conversion to Christianity in later years. European visitors once remarked on its cathedrals and courts, its refined nobility and sophisticated traditions. A land of reason. The shocking reality: Beneath the surface, ancient Congo was home to one of the most mysterious and disturbing practices of animal-based divination, consuming vulture organs to gain second sight. You're told your vision is clouded, not your physical sight, your spiritual one. Evil walks among the living, and the only way to see it is to eat a part of something that feeds on the dead. The vulture heart is small, shriveled, almost black. It's dried, not entirely raw, but still gelatinous. A priest dips it in palm wine, mumbles something in a whisper tone that makes your spine prickle, and places it in your palm. You stare at it. It stares back. You eat it. And there, silence. No explosion. No screams. Just a heat that spreads across your chest, not unlike shame. Your pupils dilate. You start seeing patterns. The shadows seem to breathe. A geometric spider crawls across the map, but when you blink, it's gone. This, the priest says, is the gift of foresight. He isn't speaking metaphorically. In this kingdom, vulture hearts were used by diviners and warriors to see threats before they arrived. A rival's betrayal. An ambush. A lover's lies. It wasn't superstition, it was intelligence gathering with intestines. You think of it like this. Vultures know where death is. Always. They circle the dying. They arrive before the end. To eat a vulture's heart is to try to steal that predatory anticipation, to live on the edge of the future. But there's more. The ritual isn't just about clarity, it's also about empathy. To see danger, you must feel it. To understand your enemy, you must briefly become carrion. Oh, soft, ripe for the picking. And in the kingdom of Congo, that empathy came through digestion. Some diviners added powdered beak or claw to the heart. Others mixed it with hot peppers and chewed it slowly while staring into flames. Still others consumed vulture eyes in a foul-tasting broth they claimed burned away illusion. There's a term they used, matonde ya kulumuka, to rise awake. It described the feeling of coming out of the ritual with a mind buzzing like a wasp hive, yet quiet in its knowing. You're experiencing it now. The fire doesn't flicker. It breathes. The priest's chant doesn't repeat, it coils. Time doesn't pass, it drips. You are no longer simply sitting. You are watching from above, circling, drifting on a thermal of prophecy. The priest hands you a piece of obsidian and tells you to draw what you see. You draw a snake devouring a house. A man with no mouth. The tree that bleeds. He nods solemnly. War is coming, he says. You saw it. And here's the haunting part. Sometimes they were right. Some of the kingdom's most successful military campaigns were launched after these rituals. A general would go into seclusion, consume the heart of a carrion bird, and emerge with a plan. If it worked, proof of power. If not, the bird must have been spoiled or worse, a liar. And the practice wasn't limited to war. Mothers consumed small slices of vulture organs to protect children from curses. Traders carried dried beaks in their pouches for negotiation clarity. The line between magic and logic was feather thin. Still, there were dangers. Some vultures carried disease. Others poisoned by villagers protecting livestock passed toxins into the hearts of those who consumed them. There are tales of false prophets who died mid-ritual, eyes wide open, mouths full of rot. The price of peering too far into the void. You're sweating now. You feel something watching. Not outside, the hute inside you. The vulture, maybe, or the parts of you it stirred awake. The ones that want to predict every betrayal. To protect yourself at all costs. To see everything before it happens. You understand now why this kingdom valued rot. Vultures, maggots, dung, decay, it wasn't just tolerated. It was trusted. Because rot doesn't lie. It tells you exactly where the weakness is. Where death begins. But there are even deeper, darker cures. Ones that mix the spiritual with the skeletal. Ones that require grinding bones, boiling them until they scream, and drinking the broth in silence. And if it's chimp bones, well then, it gets even weirder. The fire crackles low, smoke curling up to the high thatch ceiling of a secluded hut. You sit cross-legged before a large iron pot bubbling slowly over a spit. The smell is unsettling. A deep, pungent musk of something burned and sharp, like burnt sugar mixed with damp earth. Inside the pot, broken bones simmer. Not just any bones. These are chimpanzee bones ground, smashed, and boiled down into a thick broth. You're told to drink it slowly. Not for nourishment, but for healing spirits. The glamorous illusion. African kings and healers are often seen as masters of herbal knowledge, rulers of the natural world with profound respect for animals and the earth. A picture of balance and wisdom, with medicines drawn from fragrant roots and flowers. The shocking reality. Many traditional healing rituals, especially among Central African communities, included the macabre practice of boiling bones from powerful animals not just for strength, but to absorb the spirit of the beast. Chimpanzees, considered close to humans, were believed to hold strong spiritual energy in their bones. Boiling those bones extracted that energy, turning it into a liquid essence thought to strengthen the soul and banish malevolent forces. You pick up the thick wooden ladle and sip. The taste is bitter, smoky, metallic. It coats your throat with a gritty film. You feel warmth spread through your chest, but it's not comfort, it's raw power. Like the bones are screaming inside you, urging your blood to dance with theirs. The ritual surrounding this broth is intense. You must fast before drinking. You cannot speak for a day. You are not allowed to touch fire or iron. The healer intones chant swords older than memory while you focus on the heat of the liquid burning down your throat. Why chimp bones? Because these creatures were seen as liminal between wild and human, animal and spirit. Their bones held ancestral wisdom, but also raw, unpredictable power. To consume them was to absorb that unpredictability, to become wild yourself tamed only by the ritual. There is, however, a darker undertone. Chimpanzees were often hunted during times of crisis when plague struck or when rulers fell ill. Their deaths were sacrifices, not taken lightly. Sometimes the bones were ground alongside ashes from accursed enemies, blending the power of the beast with the misfortune of the defeated. Drinking this broth was not just medicine. It was an act of war against disease, against evil spirits, against human enemies. Your throat burns again. The smoke hangs in your lungs like a warning. The ritual also served a political function. Healers who could prepare this broth were revered, sometimes feared. Their success could make or break a ruler's reign. If the king recovered, it was proof of divine favor. If not, well, the blame was laid on the failure of the ceremony or the bones themselves. You realize the kingdom's health was tied to the bones of a dead ape. The line between body and spirit blurred. Between life and death. Between medicine and magic. And the bones? After boiling, the residual ash was carefully gathered, mixed with palm oil and used to anoint the body another layer of spiritual armor. This wasn't waste. This was sacred dust. You can almost hear the bones crackling in the fire, their stories seeping into your skin. And yet, this wasn't the only bone-based cure. Across the savannah, another bone was prized above all, the horn of the rhino, a remedy for broken bodies, broken spirits, and broken kingdoms. You're hobbling now, wincing with every step as you move through the sun-scorched grasslands. The sharp pain shoots through your leg, an old injury refusing to heal. Ahead, a small fire crackles beside a figure dressed in animal skins, bent over a mortar of stone and wood. This is the healer of the savannah. He's preparing something rare, precious and controversial, powdered rhino horn. The glamorous illusion. Rhinos are majestic, almost mythical creatures, massive beasts, with armored hides and horns that curve like scimitars. In art and story, their horns symbolize strength and protection. Kings and warriors are often shown wielding them as scepters or talismans. The shocking reality. The horn wasn't just symbolic, it was ground into powder, mixed with palm oil or honey, and ingested or applied to broken limbs to ease pain and supposedly accelerate healing. Rhino horn was believed to channel the beast's raw power into the patient's body. You watch the healer grind the horn with precision, the dust rising like smoke in the dry air. The rhino's horn isn't bone, it's keratin, the same substance as human nails, but to ancient peoples it was a concentrated source of vitality, endurance and life force. Your leg aches terribly, but you accept a small smear of the thick paste. It smells faintly of earth and bitter sap. The healer chants softly as he rubs it in. Why rhino horn? Because rhinos are survivors. They thrive despite predators and poachers. Their horns regenerate. The horn is a symbol of resiliency, talisman against physical and spiritual breakdown. But there's a shadow behind the healing. Demand for rhino horn led to overhunting. Even centuries ago, the horns were prized not only as medicine but as objects of status and power. Poachers, both local and foreign, fought bitterly for their control. Entire herds were decimated. The healer you see before you might be complicit in this destruction. You wonder how many lives were saved and how many more animals died. In addition to healing broken bones, powdered rhino horn was believed to treat fevers, epilepsy, and even mental illness. Some kings carried small vials of the powder to ward off poison, a precaution against assassination. This is where tradition and exploitation collide. The healer's words echo. The horn's power is both gift and curse. Take too much and you become the hunted. Take too little and your bones shatter like glass. Your leg feels numb. Relief. Or just placebo. It doesn't matter. In the background, you hear the mournful cry of a rhino sound, both haunting and hopeful. A reminder of what is lost when reverence becomes greed. You realize that many ancient cures were a double-edged sword. The same object that healed could destroy. The same ritual that protected could harm. This tension shaped entire kingdoms. You limp forward, the rhino powder still gritty on your skin, and prepare yourself for the next remedy. It's strange, less solid, more elusive. A balm made from the darkest corners of the night sky, wings of bats, and it promises to cure not just bodies, but breath itself. The night is thick and velvet dark as you enter a small hut hidden beneath a canopy of ebony trees. The air is cool but carries a strange, almost metallic scent. You sit on a woven mat as a healer approaches, holding a small jar filled with a greasy, dark salve. The source, crushed bat wings, mixed with animal fat and aromatic herbs. He applies the balm gently to your temples and around your mouth. The scent is pungent, earthy, with a sharp undertone, like damp caves and decayed leaves. Your skin tingles as the salve seeps in. The glamorous illusion. Bats are rarely seen as noble creatures. They are mysterious, but often vilified in folklore. However, among some African kingdoms, bat-derived remedies were treasured for their mystical and medicinal properties. The night was their domain, and with it came protection. The shocking reality. Bat-wing balms were believed to banish spirits of sickness, particularly those causing foul breath, mouth ulcers and respiratory ailments. The application wasn't just physical, it was a spiritual cleansing. The bad breath cured wasn't always oral. It symbolized the presence of evil or impurity in the body. You feel the cool balm spread, a sticky layer that clings despite the heat. The healer whispers chants, calling upon the nocturnal spirits to carry away the disease. The bats themselves were often collected at dusk from caves, their wings carefully clipped and dried. Crushing them released oils believed to contain night essence, kind of concentrated spiritual energy. Interestingly, some modern studies hint at antibacterial properties in bat secretions, which might have lent some efficacy to these remedies. But this isn't modern science. This is spirit medicine. The balm also had a social role. Those afflicted with bad breath, which could signal poor hygiene or disease, were socially shunned. Applying bat-wing balm was a way to reclaim dignity, a visible sign you were taking steps to purify both body and spirit. But there was risk. The healer warned you not to overuse the balm. Too much could cause dizziness, headaches, and sometimes nausea. Like any powerful medicine, it demanded respect. As the night deepens, you realize this isn't just about curing symptoms. It's about transforming identity from an outcast to a healed, accepted member of the community. You breathe deeply. The sharp scent lingers in your nose, mingling with the night air. Soon, you'll encounter a cure tied not to spirit, nor skin, but to the very lifeblood of the land, elephant blood. A potion of strength, fertility, and sacred power. You find yourself in a sun-drenched clearing at the edge of a dense forest, surrounded by whispers of rustling leaves and distant trumpet calls. A woman, heavily pregnant and glowing with a fierce, determined light, kneels before a large, shallow bowl filled with deep red liquid. It shimmers under the blazing sun. She lifts the bowl, bringing it slowly to her lips. The liquid is thick, metallic, and powerful, elephant blood, the glamorous illusion. The great African kingdoms are remembered for their reverence for nature, and the mighty beasts that roam their land elephants held sacred, symbols of wisdom, power, and longevity. Kings and queens were thought to embody these qualities, ruling with calm strength. The shocking reality. Drinking elephant blood was a ritual believed to imbue expectant mothers with strength for childbirth and the resilience to protect their children from harm. This was no casual sip. It was a sacred act tied to the land's lifeblood itself. Elephants were not just majestic creatures, but living temples. Their blood was thought to carry the essence of the earth and sky, bridging mortal life and the divine. Consuming it was believed to transfer these qualities directly into the human body. The practice was highly controlled. Only women deemed pure and of high status could partake. The blood was collected during hunts, not wasted but offered in ritual bowls, often mixed with rare herbs and palm wine to temper its metallic bite. You watch the woman drink, her eyes steady, her hands firm. Around her, elders chant blessings, calling upon ancestral spirits to protect both mother and child. The ritual serves another purpose beyond physical strength. It is a profound statement of fertility, community, and connection to the sacred cycle of life and death. Drinking the blood affirms the mother's role as a protector, a vessel through which the kingdom's future flows. But this rite is fraught with tension. Elephant hunting was and remains a contested act, balancing respect for the animal and the necessity of human survival. Poachers and hunters alike faced spiritual and societal consequences if the blood was taken improperly or disrespectfully. There's also the undeniable reality. Elephant blood carries diseases and risks, making the practice dangerous. Yet, belief and necessity outweighed caution. You feel the weight of this ancient covenant settling over you. The primal power of the elephant, coursing through veins that now seem almost electric with life. And, just as you start to sense the rhythm of the land, the court's intrigue surfaces jealousy, rivalry, and poison. Here, the next cure comes as a bitter draught, not from beasts of the land, but from the towering necks of giraffes, a potion brewed to cleanse envy and rivalry from the royal court itself. You find yourself inside a grand royal court, the air heavy with incense and whispered tension. Around you, nobles in vibrant robes murmur beneath their breaths, eyes darting and hands clenched tightly. At the center of the intrigue, a hidden vial is past its contents thick and bitter, dark as night. It's Giraffe gall, a poison and a cure both. The glamorous illusion. Royal courts across African kingdoms are often depicted as majestic spaces of diplomacy, wisdom, and culture, places where justice is dispensed and harmony reigns. The rulers appear unshakable, their courts centers of stability. The shocking reality. Beneath the velvet curtains and polished stone floors, rivalries festered like wounds. Giraffe gall was secretly used as a potent emotional purge, slipped into the food or drink of political enemies to induce vomiting, weakness, or madness. It was a weapon as much as a medicine. The reasoning behind using giraffe gall was layered. The giraffe, with its lofty neck reaching toward the heavens, was seen as a symbol of nobility and elevated vision. Its gall bladder, however, was bitter beyond belief, thought to cleanse not only the body but the spirit of jealousy and malice. In this court, jealousy wasn't just an emotion. It was a poison that could destroy families and kingdoms. The administration of giraffe gall was both punishment and protection, a brutal reminder that envy could be fatal. You watch a trusted servant discreetly add a few drops of the gall to a rival's wine cup. The victim drinks, their face quickly pales, lips twisting with nausea. They excuse themselves hurriedly, retreating to the privy or private chambers. But the practice wasn't always malicious. Sometimes, the gall was administered as a ritual cleansing to a courtier suspected of harboring destructive emotions. It was believed that the bitterness purged the soul's toxins, allowing one to return renewed and loyal. The gall's effects were immediate and harsh. Vomiting, trembling, confusion, but often, after recovery, clarity and humility. It was a bitter pill to swallow, literally and figuratively. You feel the bitter taste on your tongue, the sharpness cutting through your thoughts. The court's power games play out not just in words but in medicine and poison, intertwined. Such cures reflected the fragile balance of power where healing and harm were two sides of the same coin, and trust was a rare commodity. You shudder as you realize that even the most sacred remedies could be twisted into weapons of control. The next cure, strange and shivering, awaits. Scorpions crushed into stew, meant to soothe the restless and lull the living into uneasy sleep. You trudge. Through the late afternoon heat, the sun dipping behind thorny acacias and painting the sky in bruised purples, a low mist curls along the riverbanks, carrying the hum of cicadas and the faint clink of metal pots. Before you, a small fire smoulders under a clay cooking vessel. Steam rises spiced, earthy, and faintly sinister. A healer, whose hair is knotted with dried herbs, scoops clumps of dark, oily stew into a wooden bowl. You lean closer and spot the source of the grime, crushed scorpion bodies, tail segments and all, stewed until they dissolve into the simmering broth. You stiffen. It wriggles still. The glamorous illusion. In the grand tales of these savannah kingdoms, nights are depicted as serene rituals of dance, song and Ristharth fires glowing, families gathered in protective circles, lullaby soothed by the ripple of water. Sleep is a gentle surrender. The shocking reality. When rest eluded the high-born or the grief-stricken, when nightmares clawed too close, a potent sedative was brewed from venomous creatures themselves. Scorpions were caught under moonlight, their stings milked into oils, bodies crushed into paste, then cooked with fragrant roots and honey to mask the bitterness. The resulting stew was served to the sleepless, often uninvited guests at midnight. You cradle the bowl in your hands. The steam stings your nostrils like dust and petrichor combined. The broth's surface ripples with scorpion legs floating like driftwood. You force yourself to drink. The first sip is fire, an acrid tang of iron and spice that makes your tongue buzz. Your throat clenches, but you swallow. Moments later, your limbs grow leaden. Your mind, once racing with dusk's shadows, begins to slow, each thought a droplet suspended in thick honey. Colours dim. The world tilts. You stagger, almost dropping the bowl, but the healer steadies you, whispering words that sound like wind through grass. The way. In the kingdom's belief, scorpions embodied both protection and feral creatures that thrived in harsh climes, masters of concealment and sudden strike. Their venom was a purifying force, capable of numbing both body and mind, banishing the restless spirits that haunted the living. By ingesting the very essence of danger, one drew its power inward, subduing fear with fear, silence with sting. Occasionally, the stew was mixed with powdered baobab leaves to temper its potency, or with a few crushed bees' nests to sweeten the bitterness. But too much sweetness would dull the venom's effect. The healer's apprentice, a wiry youth, murmurs that precise measurements matter a hair's breadth too much, and you sleep forever. You tilt your head back, inhaling the room's musk, embers, sweat, and damp clay. Your vision blurs, but not painfully. Instead, like a veil lowering behind your eyes, smoothing out sharp edges. The cicada's hum slows to a lullaby. Each breath is easier, deeper, more distant. You remember bedtime rituals, the whisper of a mother's voice, the softness of a child's blanket. Here, supper is a potion, rest is conquest. This isn't desperation, it's deliberate. A nightly pact with a creature whose sting is feared and revered. Others paid higher prices. Some never woke. Scorpion stew carried a body count, whispered in corridors she sank into that dream and never returned. But for those who did, even once, it became a secret shared among royals and warriors, a kiss of the night, they called it. A sedative that transcended mortal sleep, touching the borderland between waking and death. Your limbs flop as the stew works its way through you. Every muscle unwinds. You feel light, untethered, drifting downward into dreams, or the void, you can't tell. Yet beneath the sedation, a delicate clarity remains. You sense the healer watching, waiting for a steady breath. This ritual isn't common knowledge. It's a dark art passed down through hushed lineages. Many kingdom scorpions weren't just local species, but rare desert dwellers, brought in caravans, prized for their potent stings. The more venomous the scorpion, the stronger the sedation. As your eyes flutter, you think of all the times you fought insomnia, modern teas, chance, counting sheep, none as final as this. Scorpion stew isn't for comfort. It's for release. a total surrender of the senses. You feel yourself drifting off, the world dissolving into stars behind your eyelids. But just before you slip entirely, the healer places a hand on your shoulder and whispers of the next ritual, a purification not of body or mind, but of environment itself. A hut filled with sacred smoke so dense with dung-infused aromas that it claims to cleanse not just wounds, but the very air you breathe. And then, you dream. You wake to dawn's gentle light filtering through woven reeds, your skin still tingling from yesterday's stew. The air feels thick, almost alive, as you step into a small, dome-shaped structure built of wood and straw. Inside, the only glow comes from hidden embers at the hut's heart. The scent hits you immediately, a heady, rank combination of earth, smoke, and something deeply unsettling dung. You've entered the realm of the sacred smoke bath, a ritual both feared and revered, where cleansing means surrendering to the foulest vapors, the glamorous illusion. Smoke baths are often portrayed as simple herbal rituals, pleasant scents rising from cedarwood, lavender, or eucalyptus, meant to clear the mind and refresh the body. We imagine a gentle steam, the soft hiss of water over hot rocks, a comforting ritual like a modern sauna. The shocking reality. In many African kingdoms, purification was far more extreme. Instead of floral incense, the bath used animal dung from cattle, hippos, or even mangled warthogs. The dung was dried, then burned on hot coals until it smouldered, releasing a acrid smoke that filled the cramped hut. You inhale it, eyes watering, throat stinging, lungs tightening. The healer motions for you to sit on a low, wooden stool, the center. Beneath it, a shallow pit holds the glowing dung embers. He fans the smoke toward you with broad leaves, swirling it around your arms, legs, chest, and back. The stink is overwhelming like a riverbank turned foul after heavy rains. You cough, but the healer's soft chant overpowers you, urging you to breathe deeply. Away. In these belief systems, ritual impurity wasn't just spiritual, it was physical. Dung, the ultimate symbol of waste and decay, was thought to absorb negative energies and consume curses lodged in the body. By bathing in its smoke, you invited the corruption out, leaving you spiritually and physically renewed. It wasn't enough to wash with water, you had to embrace the filth to purge it. Some dung baths targeted specific ailments, cattle dung for skin diseases, hippo dung for joint pain, pig dung for spirit blindness. Each animal's waste carried its own symbolic potency. Hippos, beasts of water and land, represented the liminal space between worlds, so their dung smoke was ideal for crossing thresholds of illness. You can feel it now. The smoke clings to your lungs, each breath a razor of irritation. Your eyes water, head aches, and still you breathe. The haze wraps around you like a living thing, burrowing into every pore. It's both punishing and purifying. The hut's walls are lined with bundles of dried dung, waiting for specific ceremonies. Each bundle is branded with symbols of the ailment it targets: tiny sagebrush leaves, painted ovals, curved lines. The healer selects one, snaps it open, and the embers flare, sending a fresh gust of acrid smoke into the air. You think of modern detox rituals, green smoothies, charcoal masks, mundane and polite. Here, detox is an act of endurance. You're meant to stay until you can't, until your lungs burn, your throat rasps, and your eyes shut. Only then are you lifted out, slathered in cool river mud to seal the cleansed state. Yet, there's a political edge too. In royal courts, public dung baths were demonstrations of loyalty and resilience. Kings and queens sometimes underwent the baths before major ceremonies to prove their purification and readiness. If they flinched or fell ill afterward, rumours spread that they were unclean, their reign tainted. You cough again, lean forward as the healer wraps you in a cloth soaked in herbal oils, anointing you to close the pores and lock in the cleansing. Your skin prickles. The oils help, but the smoke stench lingers. As the final embers die, the healer ushers you outside. You gasp fresh morning air, feeling reborn, though still dusty with soot. For a moment, you feel dizzy and disoriented, as if you've shed your old self and emerged a stranger. You glance back at the hut, half ash, half smoke, and realize this was more than a cleansing, it was a rite of passage. You've inhaled the odors of kingdoms, the curses of enemies, the decay of death itself. You've passed through filth to claim purity. But this cleansing isn't over. There is one last ritual awaiting you, an end-of-life rite, a ceremony of final release. a tapestry of buzzing skins and bone rattles, where insects become instruments and relics sing with decay. It's the ultimate purification before crossing into what lies beyond. And so, you follow the healer deeper into the forest, footsteps heavy with anticipation of the final, most intimate transformation. Your journey reaches its final threshold deep in a sacred grove where ancient trees intertwine overhead, their roots curling like slumbering serpents. You follow the healer through twisting vines until you arrive at a clearing illuminated by torchlight and echoes of insect song. At its center stands a circular scaffold draped in animal skins: leopard, antelope, and even patches of elephant hide stretched taut like canvases. Around it lie carved bone rattles, hollowed and filled with seeds, insects, and tiny fragments of shell. This is the end-of-life purification rite, known as buzzing skins and bone rattles. The glamorous illusion. We imagine death in these kingdoms as solemn, even silent processions of mourners clad in white, laments carried away on the wind, drums beating a slow dirge. A final farewell, dignified and serene. The shocking reality. Here, death is celebrated with a cacophony of buzzing wings, rattling bones, and the relentless rhythm of decay embodied in living creatures. The skins aren't just symbolic. They house the very insects believed to carry souls across the veil. You step forward as the first skin is lifted. Beneath it, thousands of termites and beetles crawl hungry, purposeful. The healer gently rolls the hide, and the insects spill onto the ground, their mandibles clicking like tiny castanets. You realize they're not merely ornaments. They are instruments. Each skin, when shaken, produces a low, ominous buzzer choir of the dead. Nearby, attendants hold bone rattles carved from giraffe leg bones, filled with dry seeds and spare insect shells. They begin to shake them in time with a deep chant that reverberates through the clearing. The combined sound of buzzing hides and rattling bones builds into a living funerary hymn, an auditory tapestry meant to guide the soul into the ancestral realm. You watch as a dying warrior is brought forth, wrapped in a final leopard pelt. The insects swarm him, crawling across his arms in a living shroud. Their gentle nibbling on the edges of the skin is both ritual and reality, removing the boundary between flesh and spirit. Each chew, each buzz, symbolizes the breaking of earthly ties. The bone rattles intensify. Their hollow echoes mimic the rattle of bones in the underworld. You feel the rhythm in your bones, a resonance that shakes loose all earthly attachments. The insects clamber higher, toward the warrior's face, and when they reach his lips, he breathes his last. His spirit, it is believed, is carried away on the wings of the beetles, guided by the song of decay. This ceremony isn't grotesque for shock, it is a profound juxtaposition of reverence and repulsion, life and death intertwined. The living creatures that consume flesh are honored as soul guides. The bone rattles, once part of a living animal, now bridge worlds. The smell of damp earth, insect musk, and old hide fills your lungs. You can taste both the end and the beginning. As the chanting slows, the insects retreat, leaving only the rattle of seeds in bones. The skins, now empty, are gathered and burned in a slow, mournful fire, sending final embers skyward. The bone rattles are laid on an altar, silent instruments awaiting resurrection in the next funeral. You stand in the hush that follows, the air vibrating with absence. You've witnessed the most intimate transformation, flesh returning to earth, body becoming instrument, death embraced as a living, buzzing hymn. And now, as the smokers and rattles fade into embers, you drift beyond this grove, beyond the buzz and the bones, toward this gentle calm that awaits. The night deepens around you now, and the torches burn low. The grove's shadows stretch, softening into quiet silhouettes. You feel the lingering warmth of the fire, and beneath it, the echo of insect wings. The sharp tang of decay has faded into memory, leaving only a faint, earthy aftertaste in the air. Close your eyes, and you're home, cradled by familiar sheets, the soft hum of a fan above, distant traffic like the beating of countless bone rattles. You've journeyed through rituals that smeared, stung, and stirred every sense, from fermented marrow and frog fat to maggots that cleaned wounds, vulture hearts that awakened the mind, and the final, living dirge of insects on stretched skins. Each practice was a passage into healing, insight, power, and ultimately, release. Remember now how the healers taught that decay is not an enemy but a guide. Rot reveals hidden truths. The worms and beetles, the venom and goriel spoke of transformation, of illness into health, of fear into strength, of life into death and back again. They showed you that what we recoil from often holds our greatest lessons. Let these visions drift away like embers on the breeze. The grotesque alchemy of those kingdoms fades now into the night's quiet embrace. Your heartbeat slows. Your breath deepens. Each inhale brings calm. Each exhale releases what you no longer need. Soon, sleep will come, and not with the sting of scorpions, stew, or the buzz of termites, but with the gentle hush of dreams. Surrender to it. Let the soft darkness guide you, folding you into rest. You've walked the line between wonder and revulsion, history and myth, life and beyond. Now, let the world dissolve, the final drum of insects vanish, and find peace in knowing that even decay leads to renewal.